Hello, everyone. Welcome to the HR Leadership Accelerator. It is Thursday, May 13th. We are talking with Eric Frieman today about leading and managing benefit programs with impact. We're going to get into a lot of great stuff. It's scheduled for 30 minutes, so we'll go quick and deep, energetic, enthusiastic, all of those things that you're used to seeing from us here. My name is Bo Bravo. I'm the founder of the Bravo Center of Excellence, where we bring to you HR education, leadership development, and so forth via live streams as often as we can, and within our leadership development program as a whole. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Eric to the conversation so that we can get rolling. And just so you're aware, Eric is the Northeast practice lead for RCM&D. He's been in the benefits world for quite some time, helping HR professionals like us really fabricate and put together the best benefit programs that we can for our individual companies and the strategies that we're looking to achieve, to implement, and the goals we want to go after for all of our employees, from the C-suite down to our junior most position. So without further ado, let's bring Eric into this conversation. Eric Frieman, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you both for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Welcome to the HR Leadership Accelerator. We are very happy that you agreed to join us today. So let's just get with it. So one of the things, Eric, that I like to focus on and have always liked to focus on inside of human resources was ensuring that we actually had a strategy. Like there's a reason, there's a why, there's a purpose, there's intent behind why we are bringing employee benefits into our company in the first place. And so let's just go in, let's just dive in there. So when you are talking with people, what are you saying to folks on the strategy side of things and how to actually develop a strategy around your benefits programs?
So first, we try to understand what the company's goals are and make certain that their benefit programs and that the strategies that they're deploying are aligned. Oftentimes, the HR team and the finance team's strategies aren't misaligned or going in different directions. So our goal initially is to understand what's important to the business, to the company, how you're attracting and retaining employees, and try to make certain that the benefit programs align with those strategies. Because oftentimes we come into companies and they say, we offer amazing benefits, and then we do some benchmarking and some research and realize that that's not the case. So we try to work with them to determine what's most important and create a stepstone approach to get there.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it's a great point to make that, it's working with the company to determine what's important to them, which from what we teach here in the HR Leadership Accelerator about values-based leadership and the importance of having core values in the organization, it lends even to the benefits that you bring on board. And I'll tell you, you mentioned recruiting and retention. I had a CFO that I worked with. The way he described it in short order was, the reason to have benefits in the first place was for recruitment and retention. Blow that out and look to why he said that. There's some purpose behind that, right? So it's to recruit top talent. Your benefits programs are they're part of the overall compensation package that people are offered, and then to keep top talent, you got to continue with the benefits and that they stay up with the time and it's actually aligned with goals.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And more often than not now, we're seeing, to your point of recruiting top talent at some executive level benefit programs for certain key individuals that are non-discriminatory. And, years ago when benefits became part of an employer's offering, it was to that exact point, to create a differentiator, to make them look better versus another employer. And it still is in that vein. We have seen a lot of benefit plans become high deductible plans, so it's watered down the differentiation. But you mentioned something about total rewards and overall compensation, and something that often gets lost on employees when they're looking at an alternate position is, what does my benefits plan look like as part of my overall compensation? And that's why benefit statements and people understanding all of these fringe offerings are critical to their overall compensation package.
Yeah, so I agree with that completely. When you when you are talking with companies, whether it's the C-suite, the HR, CHROs in the C-suite or executives, how are you handling those discussions around whether we do something different for the C-suite or we do some special one-offs just because they're executives? And how is that communicated? What are the types of things you're talking about, like how that gets communicated in the rest of the company?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I would say that first and foremost, the goal is to make sure everyone has an equal footing as far as their core benefit programs, making certain that, in the order of hierarchy, that medical benefits are number one, and then dental's number two. And ironically, people think life insurance is number three when, in fact, disability is much more important than life insurance, because if you're disabled and unable to earn, yet still alive, there's no way to provide for your family. So we try to make sure that those benefits are aligned first at a level that's commensurate with the type of employees that you're trying to recruit and attract, as well as the income levels for that employer. But when that's resolved, then we try to make certain, okay, certain people might class out by income or by the type of work they're doing. And we decide, okay, does it make sense to have an executive level disability program or some executive level medical insurance concierge type programs? Certain businesses like those programs. They give additional benefits that are of a cash value. They're non-discriminatory because they're not subject to ERISA. And they offer nice benefits. Now, there are a lot of businesses that see that as potentially problematic and don't like to offer it, but that's all part of our discovery. And what we try to do initially when we talk to our customers, we're not coming in and just saying, hey, we can find a better price on everything. The goal is not just cost. Cost is obviously a very important factor, but the goal is to understand what's important. What are you trying to deliver? And then the communication around that and the delivery to those type of employees. So it's not as easy as here's something for you, but not for them. It goes into an entire communications and rollout strategy. And those type of discussions are unique. They're not one size fits all.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you talked earlier about oftentimes HR and CFO are not aligned. So CFOs very money conscious. We also want our HR professionals to be business leaders and be money conscious as well. What are some of the best practices that you help HR professionals with, the HR leaders in their companies, how to mend those fences, how to gain alignment, the types of things that you can present to a CFO to make it more palatable, the return on the investment, why you're doing what you're doing, so forth?
Yeah, all of those things. It can be a challenge. I mean, I think more often now in today's world, there's more alignment than there was maybe 10 years ago. However, there's still that some companies have that silo where, hey, this is my world, stay out, and vice versa. I think bringing in the financial team early rather than later is beneficial in the sense that they understand how you got from A to Z. When they just see the final product and don't understand how you've gotten there with your partner, with your advisor, which is what we do, it's like we have to start over again and sell them internally on something that we've probably spent 3 months developing. So the earlier you bring them in and get their buy-in to whatever the strategy is, the better the results and the sooner the timeline will be. We found that, yes, sometimes there are, I don't want to say broken fences to your point, or fences that need to be mended, but it's easier in the beginning rather than being just shut down and told no, which is what we've seen in the past, to do that up front. So and we do that a lot. More often than not now, we are not just working with the CHRO or benefits manager. We're working with the finance team, often with the CEO, because the cost of this program is typically the highest spend after payroll at almost every business we work with. So
yeah, sure.
Number, and it has a lot of visibility.
I think that's a good point to make, and it's something we talked about with Mike Barger, with the founder of JetBlue Airways, was the importance of your stakeholders. Stakeholders, not just inside of HR, but the stakeholders, your external to your department, if you will, still internal to the company, and the relationships that you build with the C-suite are super important. And when you have that and you've spent time to build those relationships, it makes it much easier, much more comfortable to have these discussions around benefits and gain real alignment. What you're seeing on the people side, what people want, what you're seeing from an HR industry perspective, and how you can use that to be a differentiator in your organization.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think a lot of what we do, we help lead some of the meetings, even internal meetings, to discuss initiatives and help sort of an outline of what we'd like to achieve over a potential 3 to 5 year horizon. Obviously, fires are going to erupt and they're going to need to be managed. But when we have a strategy that we're deploying over multiple years, like for example, I have a large customer that said, hey, look, we need to shift our percentage the employees pay or their contribution of their benefits to X over 3 years. Obviously, that's a challenge because you've got increasing costs of plans, and so they get a double whammy. They're increasing their percentage of the cost, plus the actual cost is increasing, so it hits them twice. So we've got to try to stepstone that through over multiple years, trying to understand what's important and look for strategies to reduce the cost of the plan. There's some unique strategies within the marketplace. So know what the goals are. We can work together to deliver them. And we can always say, hey, this is what a goal that we worked together to set was, and here's how we're achieving it. And oftentimes we are met with tremendous results or a quick turnaround rather than hey, why are we even looking at this? Nobody even talked about this. When we've actually set the goals up front and we're working to achieve those. So we find that setting goals, creating initiatives, and prioritizing them is the most effective.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. I agree with. I could not agree more with that myself. One of the things that I think, if you don't have a background in benefits or understanding the finance side of benefits and how the carriers work and the relationship between the carriers and the brokers and your company and what you're paying, is the difference. It's the difference between being a fully insured company, fully insured plans versus self-funded, which can be a great conversation to have with a CFO, because then it's all about the money and what's being spent. Describe for folks listening, if we have folks listening now or even after it's posted online, the difference between what fully insured means, what being self-funded means, because it may be part of a strategy for your company in the either near term or the long term, 3 to 5 years, to get that transition going, to switch over to self-funded, and what that could mean from a financial windfall potentially for your company.
Yeah, there's a couple pieces there. First, obviously, what you're paying your consultant is something to look at, because oftentimes in a fully insured world, there are commissions and fees buried in products that you may or may not see. So something that we look at through sort of an auditing process. But in that vein, looking at self-funded versus fully insured, or even some hybrid funding models in between, depending on the tolerance of the individual business. And that's something we want to talk to that's beyond sort of HR and even possibly beyond the CFO. Sometimes it's a CEO business decision as to what do we want to deliver, what's the risk appetite for the business, how cash positive are we, and then to determine how we look at like moving to self-funded. So self-funding is a financial strategy. The benefits don't change for the employees whatsoever. It's merely a behind-the-scenes financial strategy where the business is funding the claims versus a carrier funding the claims. That's as simple as I can make it. There are insurance products behind the scenes. It's called stop loss, that essentially work as a large deductible plan where the business is purchasing insurance to cover claims exceeding a certain amount. I've tried to simplify it for conversation purposes. Typically, when you move from fully insured to self-funded, there is a savings to the business. In the first year especially, because there's a claims lag. Now, that helps certainly from a cash flow perspective, but then as claims come in, there could be costs at the back end, which is called runout. Something like that. Also, you're taking out the carrier's profit when you do this. So typically we see that about 15 to 20% savings. And it can be a financial solution for a business. And we have seen success stories where companies have saved significant amounts of money by moving from fully insured to self-funded. And it's something that each business has to explore with their advisor to make sure it works for them. And then, as I said, there are hybrids in the middle that give you all the benefits of self-funding. However, in a insured-looking model where you're funding at a different level, and if you run well, you get money back. If you run poorly, it carries into future years and is softened. So again, it's something to talk about in depth. It's a whole nother conversation, but it's a great solution for a lot of businesses, and we've driven some significant results doing it.
For sure. I bring it up for a very specific purpose. And if anybody's hearing feedback from my microphone, I apologize, because I'm hearing it in my ears and I've tried to solve it, but it's still there. So I apologize if you're hearing that. We focus on 5 cornerstones within our company and what we teach. And it's people first. So people, strategy, then finance, the business side, systems, putting systems in place, and then, of course, execution. So you made a comment about oftentimes those decisions are a CEO level decision. What we want and what we're trying to educate HR pros on is that might be the case. You need a seat at that table to have that discussion and to help formulate the discussion, providing the potential solutions, having a real understanding, truly for everybody watching, having a real understanding for what Eric just talked about, how the system works. You know, you don't have to be an expert, but how the system works, how the money's paid, where those commissions are buried so you can find them and have those discussions with your consultants and figure out what the best model is for your company. If you're diving deep with your consultant, partnering with them to get that, you have a much better probability of actually delivering the proper solutions in accordance with whatever strategy is right for your company. So thank you, Eric, for talking about that. So then we have about 10 minutes left with you've made these selections, you have a strategy. Now it comes time for implementation of your program. With all the different companies that you've worked with, Eric, and for everybody, Eric has worked with companies, big, small, US based, not US based. So they're global in their reach and benefit programs that they work with. So what have you seen from an implementation perspective that really works well for a majority of companies?
So communication. I can't say it enough. The companies that allow their employees time, if they're in manufacturing, for example, time off the line or time away from production to come and attend either an in-person or, unfortunately, in the current state, a webinar-based meeting, walk them through. We spend a lot of time educating. So some companies, there are many companies throughout the country that have not moved over to account-based plans, HSAs, for example. And transition is quite cumbersome and scary for a lot of employees, especially in manufacturing where or if there are collective bargaining agreements involved, where they're used to very specific benefits. So we spend a lot of time, sometimes an 18-month ramp up, to educate employees as to what's coming, or through surveys or sessions that aren't tied to open enrollment, for example, to make certain that they're understanding what may or may not be coming. Work with almost every single type of enrollment platform there is, all of the large HRIS payroll platforms and benefit administration systems, and they all do a fairly nice job. But there's something to that personal communications touch where you're in front of an employee, whether it's individual or session meetings at sites throughout the country. My team and I travel all over the country. Bo, I've traveled with you in the past to deliver what we think is important information to employees so that they feel that they're heard and their issues are heard and understood. And oftentimes, it's not your employee who's making that decision. Sometimes it's the spouse at home or the domestic partner at home. And oftentimes, we'll open up lines so that we can communicate to them as well. So I try to be very proactive in communications and trying to understand each unique company's systems and what they are working with in order to deliver that. So, and there's a lot of technology today that there wasn't 15 years ago that makes it a bit easier. Yeah,
that's for sure. But I think what you said at the very beginning is probably the most important part, and it's communicate. I don't think you can over communicate when it comes to what you're rolling out with the benefits plan, because you go through this on a yearly basis. So you know we're in May now, so open enrollment was about 6-7 months ago, but now you may be time for contract negotiation. What are you doing next? Because you've got a few months before you need to have those new contracts in place for the following calendar year or plan year. So communication is incredibly important. So we have the implementation, and then it comes time for actual execution. The programs are running. How often do you think HR should be looking at the programs, measuring the programs? How are they working, and so forth? Are they leading them the right way? And what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so it used to be that you'd have a renewal and you would not work on it for a few months and it's renewal.
Yeah.
The world has changed over the last 5+ years. We are working 12 months of the year with our clients. We're no longer their broker. We're their partner, and we are part of their team. Most of our customers tell us the truth about everything that may or not be working, and so that we're able to help them navigate. Oftentimes, the carriers they're with aren't the right solutions, and we need to find a new partner. Or whatever the program is that they have in place may not be delivering to their employees what they thought it was. So every year or two, depending on that strategy that's in place, we are looking at all of the vendors to determine are they the right partners. In addition to the vendors, we're looking at the team at the vendor to make certain that they're still delivering, because a lot of times there's turnover within the vendors. Oftentimes when you have a great rep, when they're great, they get promoted, and then you're left with a junior rep potentially that may or may not be as good as the prior. So that's evaluated as well. We're looking at funding mechanisms. We're looking at specifics within the programs. We've been spending a lot of time at RCMD on pharmacy, and there is a lot of money to be saved within the pharmacy programs for a lot of companies, especially when you're self-funded. So that's another topic for another day, but that's thing that for all the people listening today, you should be really investigating, because the savings generated in there are substantial.
Yeah, you're talking could be hundreds of thousands of dollars or more.
In some cases, what I'm looking at now is 7 figures. So
wow.
Yeah, it's significant, and it's interesting that while everything's going up, those programs are being squeezed because there's so many generic medications out there. So that's just one component of the things that we're trying to deliver, which can help save money in a program without making any changes. It can take what would seemingly be a bad year of claims and make it turn good just by working within your program. And given the pandemic we've all been facing, many of our customers are looking internally to try to find ways to save money but not change things and keep consistency, sort of press the easy button where they can. Their programs. Now, I wish it was as easy as pressing the easy button. There's a lot of work to be done. However, that delivery and that communication that we talked about prior is hard to do in this environment where companies are not having visitors and employees aren't back to work in many cases yet. So we need to be a little more flexible in the way we deliver.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things before we go, before we still have a little bit of time, I don't want to talk too much because my audio seems to be bad today, and I apologize to everybody for that. Over the last 14 months, a lot of companies pivoted because people are working from home, and they realized, oh, we can find talent. We can find talent outside of our location. So we can go to other states across the country to find people, and we're hiring them. And an interesting article I read on SHRM just the other day, if you've never worked in a company that had multi-state locations, and now all of a sudden you're rolling out or you're hiring people in different states, that could have benefit implications in whether or not the benefit programs you actually have in place actually have carriers or service or a network in the state where you're hiring people. So an incredible consideration for you to think about and strategize around. If you've already done it, you've probably working on some type of solution. But if you're going to do that in the future, you need to be talking to your consultant to make sure that where you're hiring, you actually have carrier connectivity, if you will, in those locations. Have you experienced that, Eric, in the last 6 to 12 months?
It's interesting. Most of our clients now have larger PPO plans because a lot of them have moved to high deductible strategies. That comes into play more where you have local networks in state, in geographies of HMOs. But we do have some of those in order to save money. And there are some companies that have networks within networks where they're called narrow networks or localized plans that definitely don't work when you hire someone out of state. We have clients hiring people that or have employees that have said, I'm going to work from home indefinitely. I'm going to move to South America or to Canada or go live in France for 5 years. I can work from anywhere now. So it's the dynamic is changing and it's evolving. We've all had to pivot to do things like that. I mean, we have a large global network that we work with, and we've worked in every country pretty much around the world. So those programs are unique. But to answer your question, yes, that is evolving, and there are strategies to deploy it. Sometimes it's having a second plan. But you have to talk to your carrier. You can't. It's hard to do it after the fact. If you're looking to hire somebody or somebody's moving to another state, you have to know about that. And to your point, it's a good thing to communicate, especially if you're an HR leader in one site and you've got sites in other states, to let your managers or HR directors in other sites know, hey, before you hire someone in a state we're not doing business in, we need to evaluate whether our plan is going to cover that. And if not, figure out a solution. So that's an important statement.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you for that. So we're about at our time. Don't want to keep anybody too long, but if you would love to join us for more trainings like this, you can join us in our private Facebook group, the HR Leadership Accelerator. We would love to have you there. We provide all types of trainings and live sessions and so forth, and we keep them posted there. You're always welcome to subscribe to the YouTube channel where we're streaming this live as well, just as another option for people to find the information. Eric Frieman on LinkedIn. You can find him very easily. He's tagged in this event. He's tagged in our posts on LinkedIn. RCM&D is his company. Great information. And for everybody, listen, if you're not up to speed on employee benefits, because it is a big topic, just like all the different functions within HR, work closely. My biggest recommendation is work closely, build a real partnership with your benefits consultant, and get educated. They will educate you, spend time with them, talk to them, learn from them all that you can so that you can develop and deliver the right programs for your company. There is no program that is exactly the same for every single company. It's based on your company's strategy, your company's values, and what it is that you want to deliver as an organization. Eric, any final thoughts?
That was perfect. No, I appreciate it. And I'm happy to help anybody if they need some help or a second set of eyes. We're happy to help anybody in any way. Please feel free to reach out if you need to.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We appreciate that very much. And for everybody, that's the HR Leadership Accelerator today, delivering you leading and managing benefit programs with impact. If you're certified, the title and the activity IDs are streaming below on the screen. And until next time, everybody have a great week, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Take care.